She looked at me for a long second after I said it. Not shocked, not offended. Amused. The kind of smile that starts in someone's eyes before it ever reaches their lips. I wasn't going to offer you the sofa, she said quietly. I just wanted to know if you'd say no. The room felt smaller suddenly. Or maybe it was just the silence stretching between us, thick with things we weren't saying out loud. The clock on the wall ticked once, twice, far too loud for how close we were standing. I don't want to cross a line, I said, not when we can't uncross. She nodded, slow and thoughtful. Neither do I, that's why I asked. I didn't assume. She turned away first, walking toward the bedroom, then stopped at the doorway and glanced back. There's space, she added, and rules if you want them. I followed, not because of the bed, but because of the way she trusted me enough to leave the door open. We changed on opposite sides of the room, backs turned, the air filled with an awkwardness that felt strangely safe. When the lights went out, the darkness settled like a blanket over both of us. Lying there, inches apart, I became painfully aware of every sound. Her breathing, the faint hum of the heater, the way the mattress dipped when she shifted. Are you awake? She whispered. Yeah. Me too. Another pause, then a soft laugh. This is harder than I thought. Sleeping. Not touching, she admitted. I smiled into the dark. We're doing okay. She turned onto her side, facing me, though we still didn't touch. Thank you, she said. For what? For not making this about taking something. Her voice softened. For staying. I swallowed. Thank you for trusting me enough to ask. Silence again, comfortable this time. At some point her hand brushed mine, accidentally maybe or maybe not. Neither of us pulled away. We didn't move closer either. Just stayed there, hands barely touching, like that was enough. And somehow it was. I fell asleep thinking that intimacy isn't always about closeness of bodies. Sometimes it's about choosing restraint together, and realizing that makes the connection stronger, not weaker. In the morning, when sunlight crept through the curtains and she stirred beside me, she smiled like someone who hadn't regretted a single moment of the night before. Still glad you didn't take the sofa, she asked. I smiled back. Yeah, this felt right. And for the first time in a long while, I meant it without hesitation. She stretched slowly, the way people do when they forget for a moment that someone else is there. Then she remembered and laughed softly, pulling the blanket up around her shoulders. Morning, she said. Morning, I replied, my voice rough from sleep. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The light was brighter now, honest. Night lets things hide in shadows. Morning asks you to look at them clearly. I wondered if this would be the moment awkwardness rushed back in. It didn't. Instead, she sat up and said, Coffee. Please, I said. I'm barely human without it. In the kitchen, she moved with quiet familiarity, hair loosely tied, sleeves rolled up. I leaned against the counter, watching, not in the way that takes, but in the way that notices. The chipped mug she always used, the small scar on her wrist, the calm she carried when she thought no one was paying attention. She caught me looking and raised an eyebrow. What? Nothing, I said. Just this feels normal in a good way. She smiled, then grew thoughtful. Normal can be dangerous, she said lightly. You get used to it, you start wanting it. I accepted the coffee from her hands. Is that a warning? Maybe, she met my eyes, or maybe it's honesty. We sat at the small table, knees almost touching. Conversation drifted easily. Work, small annoyances, things we'd never told anyone else because they seemed too unimportant until suddenly they were. At one point she said, Last night, I didn't ask because I wanted something physical. I know, I said. I asked because I didn't want to be alone, she continued, and I trusted you wouldn't make me feel small for that. I nodded. I didn't want to be alone either. The words hung there, simple and heavy. Later, when it was time for me to leave, she walked me to the door. No rush, no dramatic pause, just a quiet moment that felt like it mattered more than it looked. "So," she said, hands in her pockets, "same time tonight." I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I wanted to answer honestly. "I don't want this to turn into something casual," I said, "or confusing." Her expression softened. "Neither do I." "Then," I said, "how about dinner? No expectations, just us." She smiled, slow and genuine. "I'd like that." As I stepped outside, she added, "And for the record." I turned back. "I'm glad you didn't sleep on the sofa," she said, "but I'm even more glad you didn't try to be someone you're not." I walked to my car, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Because nothing had been taken. Nothing rushed. Nothing hidden. Just two people choosing carefully to see where something honest might lead. Dinner wasn't fancy. That was the first thing she said when I arrived that evening. "I hope you're not expecting candles and music," she said, opening the door with a half smile. "I'm hopping for something real," I replied. "Anything else is extra." That made her pause for just a second before stepping aside to let me in. She cooked while I set the table. It felt strangely intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance. Two people sharing a small task, moving around each other without bumping, learning each other's rhythm without trying. Every now and then our hands brushed, and every time it happened we both noticed, but neither of us made a thing out of it. We ate slowly. Talk drifted to childhood memories, mistakes we'd made, people we'd loved and lost without bitterness. She told me about a time she stayed in something broken because she thought leaving meant failing. I told her about walking away too early because I was afraid of being needed. "So we're both a little bad at timing," she said. Or, I offered, "we just hadn't learned patience yet." She considered that, then nodded. After dinner, we moved to the living room. No TV, just the quiet hum of the city outside the window. She sat at one end of the couch, curling her legs under her, leaving space, not distance, just space. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything." "What are you actually hopping for here?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes were serious. "Not tonight, not tomorrow, just in general." I didn't answer right away. I thought about it carefully. "I'm hopping for something that doesn't make me feel like I'm performing," I said. "Something where I don't have to pretend I'm less careful than I am." She smiled, soft and almost relieved. "That sounds safe." "Does safe scare you?" "A little," she admitted, "but less than it used to." She shifted closer, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence. "I don't want fireworks that burn out," she said. "I want something that stays." I turned to face her. "Then let's not rush to name this," I said. "Let's just keep choosing each other honestly, day by day." Her breath caught slightly. "I can do that." Silence settled again, but it was different now, full, steady. Eventually, she rested her head lightly against my shoulder. I didn't move. I didn't pull her closer. I just stayed, letting the moment be exactly what it was. "This is nice," she murmured. "It is," I agreed. Later, when it was time to leave, she walked me to the door again. This time, she didn't ask me to stay. She didn't need to. Before I stepped out, she reached for my hand, just held it, looked at me like she was memorizing something important. "Thank you," she said. "For dinner." "For being patient," she corrected. "People forget how rare that is." I squeezed her hand gently, then let go. "Good night." "Good night," she said. "Drive safe." As I walked away, I realized something quietly profound. Nothing dramatic had happened. No promises. No lines crossed. And yet, it felt like the beginning of something that mattered, because it was built not on impulse but on care.